Welcome, everyone, to Expressions the Podcast, Season 2, Episode 9. This evening, we have a very special guest on. We have Andres Moline, who is an industrial product designer, a marine designer, as well as a professional photographer doing macro products and landscape photography.
Thank you for having me at this podcast. I'm actually... This is the first time I do a podcast, to be honest with you.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is.
That's awesome.
So I'm very excited about it.
Welcome.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different. I'm still feeling like I'm a newbie at it. I haven't had a lot of guests of my own on. I sort of ride the coattails of Aurora, Brian, and Ryan. We have a fourth host, Ryan, who couldn't be here this evening. But it sort of works out well because Brian, Aurora, and I are also all photographers. I am certainly not to your caliber. I will strive to be there one day, but I'm certainly not there.
Thanks.
But before we get into talking with you, I'll just say hello to my co-host this week. Aurora, how are you this week?
I'm doing good. Today I had the chance to spend some time with my family. I actually haven't seen my mom and my siblings since Thanksgiving in person.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
So it's been a long time. So we had quite a bit of a fun afternoon. We went to a little crepe restaurant and they had board games and stuff. And we just hung out and did that. So it was a lot of fun. And now I'm here for the podcast. So
perfect.
Super excited.
Yeah, we've got an exciting one for sure. And Brian, how are you this evening?
Awesome. I'm very excited. We know Don Komarechka for macro photography, and my whole world of macro, everything kind of compares to the Don Komarechka experience. And I'm just looking at some of your photos, and I'm just like, there's another one. Like, this is fantastic work.
Don is a very hard act to follow, I tell you.
Don is a special talent,
wonderful.
but looking at your images, okay, so there's photographers, and then there's photographers that get it, that understand the subtleties and the composition and the science and the math and getting the detail right and knowing what to shoot. And that's where I see your work is. So I'm very excited to talk to you. I can't wait. It's going to be a great chat.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you for being here again, Andres. It's just amazing to look at your work. I've been drooling all over your webpage here. It's a good thing I'm at my own desk, but obviously for our viewers on YouTube, obviously you're seeing our Andres webpage, but our listeners on Spotify will put a link to Andres webpage in the link below so that you can see it. But this work is phenomenal. What are we looking at here, Andre?
Well, this is this beautiful fly with these gorgeous eyes. It's actually a horsefly, and they bite really hard.
Yes, they do.
So, sometimes the beautiful things are, the most dangerous ones.
This is going to give me nightmares now that I know it's a horsefly.
Now, I just have my question when I'm looking at this, knowing how flies don't like to sit, they don't stay. Is this fly alive while you're shooting this?
Yes, it is. This picture was taken here in Florida by the Everglades. If you have an understanding of how these insects react to light, you will be able to take multiple pictures of them. And so I use certain techniques to be able to approach them and then, be able to photograph them as like this photo is a photo stack. So there's multiple photos taken and then all merged together in software so that you can get the depth of field that you see here. But, there's certain tricks. There's different ways of capturing, like different insects. And flies, they, as good vision as they have during the daytime, their vision is not that great at night. So if you wait at the right time of the day to photograph them, you will be able to capture multiple shots like I did for this photograph.
Okay.
Matter of fact, all the insects photography that I have, they're all alive.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite easy to photo stack dead insects. And, but the real challenge is to photograph them alive, usually at their location, their habitats. So a lot of these photographs that you see in my website, it's a preparation. There's a lot of preparation that takes for you to get a really good understanding. You're pretty much stacking them for a long time. you become this like paparazzi, chasing them around, hoping for them to stop for the second and allowing you to take, like many pictures, like you can see in this one.
And this is what I was talking about earlier, about how there's some people that will take it to that next level and just really pay attention to what they're doing at a different degree. I don't think there are many photographers that I know that would have the persistence and the patience to, or the desire to be honest, to sit there and stalk an animal, an insect specifically. But these images, a horsefly, really?
Yeah.
Like where are the chompers? Where are those talons that just grab you and take a chunk out of you? I don't see that there.
Well, yeah, it's right there. That's the mouthpiece right there.
It's this piece here, I think.
Yeah.
Horseflies. Oh, sorry.
That's the part that she uses. And it's funny because the females are the ones that have a separation between the eyes, right? The males don't. So when you see the horseflies, that the entire, like all the eyes look like a helmet, those are males. And they don't bite.
The males don't bite.
They don't.
Okay.
Like, usually with flies and mosquitoes are the females the ones that bite. They use the blood to help them fertilize the eggs. Not fertilize them, but like to prep them for laying eggs.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now,
you guys hear? I think an ambulance or somebody going by right now.
Yeah, I can hear. I thought they were coming to get me for a second, but we got to get through this first.
I apologize.
In
Miami, right?
Yeah, absolutely. For this type of photography, so you mentioned that this subject is quite alive when you take the picture. If I'm not mistaken, most insects you wouldn't get the vibrance or the colors if this insect was dead. Am I correct?
That's correct. So like the main challenge of photographing dead insects is that. First of all, they look posed. When you see a dead insect, when they do these beautiful, like super stacks, that they're still wonderful photographs, but that requires a lot of preparation. I have friends of mine in Canada actually that are great photographers for that type of photography, and they usually buy like dead insects that come from Africa, from other places, but they have to hydrate them. It has a process for them to get them ready. So yeah, you will lose the color in the eyes. You usually all the little hairs and scales that like the different insects have. You will see those as well. Will have a lot of damage. So usually you realize when the insect is dead because of those things. And then the other thing too is you can see in this one here. Like the antennas in the face and the mouth and everything. Everything is in the right place. And that only happens when they're alive. When they're dead, you can see usually when the antenna is missing or like parts are, like posing in the wrong direction. That's
right. Yeah, fair enough.
I'm so interested because you mentioned before you're using some sort of technique with the light in order to get them to stay in one place. Yeah. Is it like really blinding light? Like, it's just so interesting to me.
So this is what happens. In photography, light captures movement and it stops it, right? So if you have the right strobe and the right speed, you will freeze light. You freeze the image. So when you're taking macro, it's pretty much the same principle, but at a smaller scale. So the reality is that you need less light to acquire a better image because it will be, perfectly frozen if you have less light. So usually these photographs are taken at very low power of the strobe so that the image gets 100% sharp. And then what I do is that I take multiple images all at once. So my flash, I use an external battery pack so that the flash can take as many pictures as possible, without having to recirculate. So I have a battery pack set up into my dual flash heads. And then I just put my camera in a burst mode, and I just press the button, and I go back and forth. Very small movements. The small movement is very small. I'm talking about pressing the camera against my cheek, and then feeling how much pressure I can get in my cheek, and then let go. That small movement is usually about 10 to 15 images of this little guy. Just rapid fire. That's usually some, like the amount of time that they allow you to photograph them, and then they fly.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. So you're taking it on burst. And your flash is cycling through.
My
like,
flash
multiple-
is just cycling really fast. I usually put like 1/8 of the power. You know,
Yeah.
nothing very powerful. Like too much light will not freeze the image at that moment. And then I learned this. I mean, I don't know if you guys seen these beautiful like spiders that they have the tail in the back. They call them peacock spiders. They're from Australia.
Okay.
So Project Moratus is a group of guys that, you know, they started photographing these very, very small, tiny little peacock shapers, and they dance and they shake the tail like this and they move back and forth. And they're very small, and they use the technique to photograph them and to be able to capture them because they're very quick. They move very quick when they're dancing around. So that's the same technique that I'm using for capturing my pictures.
Very
Well,
cool.
it makes sense.
Wow.
When your flash is on too bright, it stays on for a longer period of time. Flashes don't get brighter and darker; they just stay on for longer or shorter period of time. So when that
That's
flash
right.
fires, it just stays on just a quick little bit to light it, or else the motion of the animal would actually show because the flash would be on it for longer. That's really, I love that.
Right? You
That's,
said it better than I could, man. I'm telling you.
wow. That's just learned something today. That's awesome.
I'm a teacher. That's what I do.
I love it.
That's
I've learned
awesome. That's
Nature per
awesome.
photo, everybody. There you go.
perfect. So what is the flash setup? Is it like a ring light or are they side?
So I have it's a twin flash. It's a Canon EX-T24EX. It's just a twin. It's a twin head flash. The flashes can be moved around. So usually, you know, you can position them so that they can lead up the back of the subject, and then you can have one that is predominant over the subject itself. So you can move those two. You can control the speed on both of them as well, separately if you need to. But as I just mentioned, you know, like what I do is I keep the flash power very low, so that the flash, as Brian mentioned before, you know, comes up very quickly. You know, illuminates what it needs to illuminate, and it just freezes that slide, and then just rapid burst. The flashes are just pretty much, you know, like it's just two dual head flashes. I think I may have it here. If you don't mind, I can show it to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sure. I was actually just trying to find a photo to share, but that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, because I mean, this is obviously something that interests me as far as macro goes.
Yeah, I'll bring one of these boxes that has different things, but this one has one of the flashes, and you can see it here. So this is the flash. You know,
okay.
it's a simple strobe, but it has these dual heads, right?
Okay.
And the dual heads, I have this. These were made by a buddy of mine in the UK. These are just diffusers,
Okay.
but I have different levels of diffusion. Of course, the light is very smooth, and one of these lights go on this ring right here. So one goes in one side, and the other one in the other side, and then you can just manipulate them. They can go back and forth in any direction, and they can move side to side as well.
Awesome.
Oh, that is really cool. That
Just
is
so you
really
know,
cool.
Mark, Nikon has that too. Don't worry. So
Perfect.
Nikon does. Actually, Godox has it as well. They have a very
That's
interesting one, and one that just came out with recently that is really nice as well. I mean, as the bottom line is this. Look, I mean, I use these flash heads, but they're not necessarily like the only thing that you can use to obtain very good quality pictures.
Yeah.
Any strobe will work. I think the important thing is, you know, how you diffuse that light, you know, just to make sure that the light spreads and is very smooth all throughout.
Perfect. And what sort of a lens are you using to get that?
Do you remember Dan talking about the Canon MPE 65mm macro?
Yeah.
Well, here it is. It's the same thing. I think most of us use the same lens. I shoot with many different lenses. As a matter of fact, I did a tutorial in YouTube of how to photograph with a reverse lens. And
we should share that in the link as well. I'll make note of that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
the video with I did a collaboration with the f-stoppers, and you know, that was the first thing that we did. We released a video to let people know how to shoot macro with any lenses that you may have in your arsenal by reversing them, you know, and then we just explain how to log, how you log the aperture, you know, just minimal things. And then we talk about, you know, briefly we talk about the light. But again, as I mentioned before, the light is not so important. You don't need to have such a powerful gear. You just need to have the right diffuser. And then obviously this lens, because they magnify from, they go from 1x to 5x. They allow you to do a lot of different things with a single lens. Most of the other lenses are, you know, like only 2x or they're only 1x. So these are good lenses to have. They're not so expensive. They're quite old. And I think Don mentioned that before. The lenses are not that, these are new, but they're not new. You know, it's something that has been out in the market for over 20 years.
Yeah.
They're 100% manual, and that's why I like them so much, because you have to have full control of everything that you're doing manually. And that usually when you're doing macro, everything becomes manual. You know, I set up my flash manual, then I control the output of the power of the light through my aperture. You know, whether if I need more light, I up my aperture. If I need to, I close it. You know, so a lot of things become very manual, and this really forces you to have a really good understanding of what you're doing with your camera, you know, photography wise.
It makes me wonder, though, the trend of photography these days is to go to a mirrorless camera. You can't do this with well, maybe mirrorless has different technology coming in where they do in-camera stacking, but the way you shoot specifically, you mentioned it. You want to feel that pressure on your cheek. You want to know how that's feeling. And you're not really auto-focusing, as you've said. You're manually just rocking yourself to and fro, or just moving it as the pressure against your face. With a mirrorless, that would be a completely different feel. Have you tried that with a mirrorless? Or
yes, I have. I tried with Fujifilm. You know, Fujifilm has a 100 megapixel camera. It's a wonderful camera. It's really good for landscape, but for macro, it's not that great. You know, the mirrorless cameras are still not. Mirrorless cameras are really good. They do a lot of different things. You know, they can assist you. The color range is amazing. You know, the dynamic range on those cameras is beautiful. But I still, you know, I every time I go back, I still take my 5DSR, which is an old, you know, like 6-year-old camera. And always go back to the same camera, even though I do have, you know, like Fujifilm and I have other gear. The DSLRs have something about it that is more mechanical, and it allows you to do more with it. You know, the quality of, like, for example, like with the 5DSR, is 50 megapixels. Right now, there's a lot of 50 and 60 megapixel cameras, but most of them are mirrorless. And, you know, you can pick up one of these 50 megapixel cameras right now for like $1,500, and you will get everything, if not more, of what you're gonna get out of one of these mirrorless cameras, because it will allow you to buy other things that are important. You know, like your glass,
like
your lights,
65.
yeah, that sort of things.
Really
So, yeah, I mean, that's true about the gear. I think, you know, as things are getting better, they're better for certain things, but for macro, it's not necessary.
You preach, brother.
That's
my whole life,
awesome.
day in and day out, is talking to folks about new cameras. I work at Henry's Camera in Newmarket, so does Aurora, and not in Newmarket anymore. Yeah. Anyway, I'm still upset about that. We'll get that changed. Anyway, yeah. So with talking to people about cameras all the time, you're constantly trying to talk about the newest and latest and greatest. And I keep on trying to tell people it's not about the gear; it's about how you use the gear. The best feature on any camera is the 12 inches behind it, I always say. And understanding what lenses to choose, and understanding the settings, and just understanding the limitations. We had a conversation with Don, and how just because he understood how aperture and the camera lens worked, he was able to use a broken lens on a vacation that he wouldn't have been able to get photos otherwise. It's just understanding your equipment is so important. And you can save money by buying an older 5DSR rather than buying yourself a brand new, you know,
Sony,
whatever, 50 megapixel camera. And you could still buy the MPE65 and the flashes and the modifiers. I love that. That's preach.
Yeah, I think that, you know, when it comes to photography, sometimes, I'm a minimalist, right? I mean, I do a lot of landscape, and I go on hikes, and I go to Iceland, and I carry a lot of gear. So I try to carry the least possible that will do as much as possible. So that's why I have the MPE, because it just give me good range. I love Laowa. There's a lot of different lenses that are amazing. You know, there's, you know, like where people talk about primes and that sort of things, but I cannot just bring so many different like lenses. You know, you cannot go through the jungle having 2 or 3 different primes that are macros that are amazing. You know, I mean, you got to make sure that when you're there at the moment, you can just bring the right things. And then for that reason, I will always say, you know, I prefer to have, or I usually tell people, it's better to have a limited amount of good gear, right? And then have a really good knowledge of it, so that you can understand what you can get out of it. Once you know what you can get out of your gear, the limitations will be you. what can you not do? Which can you get a better like you're showing these photos right now. Like can you do different times of the day? Would you be able to do like different? Man, I'm blind right now. I'm sorry, but can you do long exposures? Can you focus on getting the right perspectives, or trying something that hasn't been done before, and even though you already shot the same place a million times, that sort of things.
Look behind you.
Look behind you. Yeah, the 12 inches.
Yeah.
I love that one. I'm gonna quote you at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing too. Like I love to travel, and I don't get pictures. I've got the image up here of what's the waterfall of the gods here in Iceland. I don't get pictures like this, but I also, when I go, I'm trying to see as much as I can, and maybe I need to slow down a little bit because the funny part is I know how to create an image like this, but when I'm traveling, I don't, because I'm moving too fast.
Mark, you hit the right point. So during my photography career, if you want to call it that, I've been able to do different things. So I shot for CSI Miami. I photographed bullets. Like a bunch of random things. And while I was doing that, which is my macro work, I was doing photographing bullets. Believe it or not, that's something that makes you can make good money with this. Like when you go to court, the lawyers have to pay a professional photographer to photograph these bullets that have been involved. Hopefully, in that something bad that like ricochet, hit someone, like something like that. And then you photograph these things. You can make good income out of these things. And I was doing the same thing with jewelry. Photographing earrings, diamonds, and that sort of things. And you get so focused on what you're doing that you forget that you think you have all the knowledge of how to do these things, but then you start forgetting about all the other things that that can probably improve on what you're doing. So you start being creative. You turn your passion into work. So I stopped doing that. And then another passion of mine is the traveling and going into hikes, mountaineering, that sort of things. So I started doing that. But then at the same time, because we are photographers, we love photography. Somehow you have to bring it back into it, So I ended up doing these photo tours with this company called Boreal Expedition, and all they do is Iceland. So I go to Iceland. I go with all the knowledge that Mark has. I start putting myself into photographing things. But the main thing that I learned when I was doing this was I was learning from the people that were shooting with me that are not pros, and they're looking at with the different eyes. They're looking at the same places. They're getting better compositions. They're getting very beautiful photographs, and all the technique and everything that Mark and Brian, Aurora, and myself know. You got to leave it behind sometimes, and you have to make sure that when you get to these locations, you just really embrace it and leave the location first. Let it fill your eyes. Like sit there for a second. Feel the cold so you can really get an understanding of what you're photographing. And then at that point, like you set up your tripod, throw in your filters, organize everything that you have to do, and then you get some, that you can get some incredible pictures at that point, But prior to that, I was getting very common photos as well, And then I will come back from Iceland and I will tell myself, I'm like, wow, but what is this? Very common photos. Until I started, practicing what my students, the people that were taking their workshops with us, were doing. They were just coming in with big eyes, like the wonder of, the location.
Yeah, I call that the power of the pause.
I think I'm guilty of that. I show up somewhere. I'm like, wow, and I just start shooting, and then I leave and I'm looking through my photos when I'm done, and I'm like, didn't get it. I didn't get what I saw, and I need to do that. I need to pause when I get to a location.
What you just said is the truth. The pause. We need to pause, and unfortunately, society has fallen victim to cell phones and to Instagram and all this. Everything is quick. When you get to a place, you lift your phone, start snapping pictures around, but we all do it with our cameras as well, and I think part of it is that we become slaves of social media, and then we forget that we're photographers, and the reason why we do it is because we're creative people, and we need to find that creativity no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing,
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think the anniversary of it just passed. Brian and I were talking about it. I did a wedding photography seminar with Brian and some other photographers. I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago. And the one piece of information that I took back from that, the most important one, is because everybody's got either a camera or a cell phone, or in some cases tablets, to memorialize that event. And the idea is, as the wedding photographer, I'd better give the bride and groom a picture that they couldn't have got from Uncle Jim with his iPhone.
That's right.
It has to be a better photo.
That's part of something that I learned with Boreal as well, because what Boreal Expedition does is it brings photographers to Iceland. This is a photo that we just recently took in October, I believe. So
Wow.
we bring the people, and the people are usually photographers that are learning photography or people that just love photography. And then we photograph them during the trip. Usually the photographer never gets any photos of themselves. So as a matter of fact, the pictures that I sent to you when you requested me to send you some of my pictures were pictures that people took of me during the trip.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, like, I want you to stand here. I want you to pose. Because usually, that happens. We're the photographers. We're never in any photos, and it's hard. I had to call everybody and tell everybody that went with me to the last trip, and I said, "Hey, do you guys have any pictures of me?" Because
yeah, and actually
do that.
Looking at those photos, they're epic. Like they're the most epic shots. The one of you by the waterfall, I love that.
Yeah, those are pretty cool, man. I mean, again, listen, we can talk about this later on. I would love to have you guys come to Iceland and explore. Iceland is a wonderful place. We can explore it all together. It's magical.
Awesome. So it's a mini dream of mine. Well, a pretty big dream of mine to see the Aurora Borealis, because I've never seen it before. I've only seen it in photos and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's, yeah.
Well, Aurora, I'm going to tell you one thing. Listen, I know you have the name for it. Okay.
Yeah.
You will definitely see them. Auroras are very magical. It's something very mystical, and you'll be impressed because they do look like these photographs. They dance. They stay for a long period of time. So, like the photo that you just saw there, that's a panorama that I took. This is probably like 7 photographs to gather the whole panorama. So it allows you to do many different things. Sometimes they dance. Sometimes they hover. Sometimes they change colors. But it's something definitely very mystical. It changes the color. Well, there's another thing that you see in this photograph is that this was a full moon. That this night was a full moon, and that's why the mountain was was able to be lit.
Yeah.
I was going to ask that.
Because normally for
awesome.
nightscape photography, you wouldn't want a moon because you want the stars bright. But in this case, the Borealis are.
Yeah, for Borealis, full moon, it's definitely a good thing to have. You will be able to see them. You will definitely be lighting up your foreground, your background. I mean, it's wonderful.
That's good to know.
So cool.
Oh yeah, it's just an amazing shot. So listen, I want to back up a little bit. Here. So when did you get into photography? Like when did you know, or first start, and then at what point did this become a passion that this was what you were going to do going forward?
Well, the photography aspect of my life, it came a very early age. My mother had a Pentax K1000, and the beautiful cameras. I was obviously a kid. And she used to love photography, but she was never able to do any of it. But she did take beautiful pictures of us. So, I can tell you that my album, my baby album, my brother's baby album, it has some wonderful photographs. Because my mother was a creative, and she had a very good eye for things. So I started at an early age. When I was in high school, I discovered a class called creative. It's like creative arts. So it was the actual name of the class was creative arts, yeah. And Miss Nielsen was my professor. This class teach you photography, teach you a little bit of everything. I learned how to use Photoshop 3.0 at that time, and and different things, like basics and principles of graphic design and sort of things. But we had we had a dark room. We had equipment that we could borrow. We had medium format cameras, and I started doing it there at that moment. And I fell in love with two different things, designing products, designing things, and then the photography. And I always knew that I was going to put them together, I always told myself, no matter what I do, I might end up just designing cameras, but I'm gonna be doing something with photography. So it was then. I was probably like 15, 14 years old at that time, and then I went to school in Savannah, Georgia. But first, I went to a different university here in Florida, which is University of Gainesville, UF, Florida, University of Florida in Gainesville. Sorry, but when I went to school there, I wasn't doing photography or design. Like the person that is in charge of advising you in high school, I told them, I said, I want to design products. I want to, like come up with these new ideas. And the woman was like, oh, you have to be an industrial engineer. So I went to school for the wrong thing. And I spent a lot of time going to school for the wrong thing. And I'm thinking, I'm like, when am I going to start sketching something or drawing something, And back then, in 1996, 97, there was, we had internet and we had certain things, but it wasn't what it is right now. The access to information wasn't there at that point. And then I met a guy that I went on a holiday and I met a guy in Europe that told me like, I'm an industrial designer. I design products. And I'm like, wait a second, what am I doing? And the guy told me like, oh, he goes to school in Savannah, Georgia, SCAD, which is the Savannah College of Arts and Design. And then, like I came back to the States, I immediately, went to Savannah, applied for the university and all those sort of things. Man, they have an amazing program for industrial design and an amazing program for photography and cinematography. It's just a great school. And what I liked about it was that, when I was choosing what I wanted my curriculum to be, they said, choose photography classes, all this many. Industrial design classes, this many. You want to do pottery? You can have pottery too. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I was very lucky, to be honest with you. And then, my mother was very supportive too. My mother was like, listen, man, it's going to cost probably an arm and a leg, but, we'll cut it, we'll pound it, whatever we need to do. And she gave me the opportunity. And I was very, very fortunate to go to SCAD. And I got a degree in industrial design. I got another degree for marine design. And then while I was doing all this, I was taking all of the photography classes possible. I didn't want to get a degree in photography because I knew that I would always do it, and I had already the understanding based on what my high school teacher told me. And she told me, she's like, look, Andres, photography is something that you have to have, first of all, the love for it, right? And the understanding of what you're seeing when you're appreciating a photograph. But then the main thing is you have to, just be in love with it, and you will always do good. You will always improve. Things are always going to change. And I follow her advice, and I always put photography on the side of everything that I was doing, but I didn't go after a degree because first of all, it was a lot of money. It was more money to get another degree for photography. And I was learning a lot, I was shooting Hasselblads, I was shooting medium format. I got my hands, on every single thing that I could. And I knew that with practice, everything was just going to continue to grow. So that's my story about how I got into all this.
Excellent. It's a great story. It's an awesome story.
I keep going back to my other alter ego, maybe, as the lazy photographer. I know it's not something to be super proud of, but one of the things, like you've mentioned it, you travel, you make hard choices to improve your life. You went from one university to another. And then you say, yeah, I was lucky. I don't think that's lucky. I think that is purposeful. I think that is something that you knew yourself well enough to strive for and achieve. So I think that maybe you got to give yourself a little more credit there, because that's not luck. That is definitely
Thank you, Brian.
something.
No, I appreciate it, honestly. I feel, you already seen like my website, and in my personal website, I have different things, because every single one is a different business. So like my macro photography, I did the tutorial with f-stoppers. It's a 12-hour long tutorial where, we explain how to shoot the bugs the way I do live, on location in Costa Rica, that sort of things, studio, stacking, the whole 9 yards. But then Boreal Expedition is the same thing, I started doing the landscape photography. I started especially traveling a lot for the bugs, because the bugs, to find the bugs that you see in my photos is Colombia, in the Amazons, Costa Rica, Peru, like all over the place. Here in the States, like traveling throughout the States, Asia, China. It's just all over the place. So when you start doing something that you think that you really enjoy, the best way for you to afford doing that is to figure out a way of how you can monetize it. And that's what I did. And that's why, Boreal Expedition I'm part owner of that business. Because when I first went to Iceland, I fell in love with the island, but then I fell in love with the people that I was with. And, I told the tour guide that was doing the trip, and I told the guy, I said, listen, man, like, amazing places, all the spots, you take wonderful photos, because this guy's a photographer too. But then he explained to me that he's not just a photographer, he's a policeman. This sounds weird. The guy is a policeman in Spain, and he told me, like, I do only certain amounts of trips throughout the year because I love Iceland and I love photography, and if I do these trips, I can afford doing them. So I said, you know what? I want to become your business partner. I want to do the same thing. I want to do these trips. I want to be able to afford making these trips to Iceland. And the only way to do it is by, being invested into it. The same thing happened with the product photography. I mean, I did a lot of product photography for Black & Decker, for a lot of our clients, Remington, all the products that my company works developing. We also do the photography for the packaging and other things. But if you're vested in it, you can enjoy yourself doing those things because you're monetizing them. And I mean, and that's what, because a lot of people tell me, like, oh, hold on a second, Andres, you're a macro photographer, you do macro photography, but at the same time, you're doing landscape and you're doing all these things. But, like, what do you really do? Are you a photographer, but you're a designer, and you have design awards because of this, like my company has, thank God, very luckily too, we have good talent and we've been able to do a lot of different things. So what do you really do? And this is a good point, because when you try to do many thif sometimes you can fail at many things, right? But if you don't try, you won't know. And that's my motto. I'm like, listen, if there's something that I find that I'm gonna try to do it no matter what. I will try to move, the heaven and the earth, but I will put it to my reach. And I'm not talking about money, because like most people think it's money what will get you there, but it's not true. Like I was explaining to a friend of mine, he's like, man, but you're crazy. How do you think that this Iceland thing is gonna work? It's pretty simple. I'm gonna tell all my friends that are photographers, and I'm gonna make a trip where I'm not gonna make money out of this, but all my friends are gonna go with me, and they're gonna get to enjoy this with me as well. You see? So that's the start. Later on, you start monetizing it, but you have to always have like that the start, the beginning. And then, like, again, if you talk to the tour guide and you mention to the guy, say, listen, man, I can bring some people, they're my friends, but I'm on a budget, can you help me out? People will always help you out. You know what I mean? It's just kind of finding that the first step, and after that, everything comes with it.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. So how large are the groups? I've actually, on the other screen, I've got a group shot of the one, the expedition here. Is this about the size of the group that you would take to Iceland?
Yeah, actually, that was the trip that we did in October, and I brought some guys that were cinematographers, and they were shooting a bunch of video with drones and all this sort of things. But that's what it is. It's about 10 people. Yeah. You can see me sitting in the, I don't know if it's backwards, but in the left-hand corner.
Yeah.
Right
second from the end there.
Yeah, that's right. And the guy with the red jacket, that's my business partner.
Okay.
But you see, this type of pictures is what I was mentioning to you before. So, I mean, this one that is here, I put it there because, like it's like my team. Yeah. But we take this type of pictures of people. So, like when you see like action adventure, people jumping, like coming out of the mountain, like the climbs, these sort of things, it's because the photographers usually don't have any photos of themselves.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny you say that. I did. My wife and I I think we were in Saint Martin, and we went scuba diving. And I had my little underwater camera, and I'm taking all these pictures. But I wasn't in. Obviously, I'm the guy with the camera. I wasn't in any of the pictures. And they were on the boat. They sent their own diver down, and he had a Nikon DSLR in a body, in a housing, and on the boat back to shore, he's burning CDs and selling them to us right on the boat.
Yeah.
And he's got his laptop, and here's pictures of me scuba diving, and I know I'm not in any of mine. And you're darn right, I bought his CD off of him. I forget how much it costs. I didn't care.
Mark,
Because
I went to Mexico with my wife and her family, and I hired a guy to take pictures of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you know, like it is what it is. You know, as a photographer, you forget about yourself sometimes. And you know, the thing that is sad is that, you know, we capture all these beautiful moments, and people see these places that they look, you know, like marvelous and majestic, you know, like these Aurora Borealis pictures and all these other things. But man, I'm telling you, the feeling of being there and being with the other photographers and friends of yours, the camaraderie, you know, you're talking about it and the pictures are happening. And then you go home and you have that one picture with the Aurora Borealis, and you don't have any pictures with your friends or anything at all. You know, that's a mistake that, you know, I stopped making, and now, believe it or not, I you know, like, because we're taking group photos like this, I have a lot of people take pictures of me. That's why the picture with the waterfall I'm posting with my lens and all these other things, because I'm telling them, hey, take a picture of me too. You know, bring it home.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. To first off, that you were able to do this, and that you figured out a way to do this, and have it pay for itself, and hopefully make you a little extra income on the side. But also that you're giving these experiences to people. Now, while you're on this trip, do these photographers turn to you for education as well? So do you teach them how to take pictures?
Yes.
Long exposures and things?
Yes, correct. I mean, yeah, we usually, before the trip takes place, we tell them what type of gear they need to bring with them. And we walk through the gear that they have. We teach them how to use, you know, like back focusing buttons, and, you know, like obviously shooting in manual. And we teach everything related to landscape photography, you know, hyperfocal length and all these other things. You know, obviously all your basics of photography. But the most important thing that we do is because obviously the photographers that come with us, they want to learn things, but at the same time they want to be left to photograph. So they want to explore, you know, they want to find different things. So what we do is that, you know, we tell them, listen, guys, you know, this wonderful place from here, you know, you can get amazing shots. Those are your shots that you'll find online. You know, these are the shots that you're gonna see that everybody's posting on Instagram and that sort of things. But then, you know, if you guys want to walk a little bit, you know, we tell the group, we can walk maybe, you know, half a mile around this waterfall, and we can get this amazing shot from the bottom. You know, who wants to come and check it out? So some people will stay in the top, some other people will come in the bottom. And then, you know, like the principles of photography, especially when people are going to Iceland to do landscape. I mean, most of the people already have really good knowledge of it. So what we do is we walk through those processes, but then when we finish photographing everything and we go back to our houses, because we have multiple houses throughout the island, that's how we do the tour. The tour is like around the entire island. When we get to the houses, we pop up the computers, open Lightroom, Photoshop, and that's when we really teach them. Because the thing is, one thing, the camera can do so much. But Mark, you said it before, you don't see in the photo what you had in your mind.
Yeah.
Right? So we make sure that we teach them the very good principles, very solid principles of post-processing, of how to take these images that they just took, and how to get all these colors right, how to make sure that the dynamic range is there, you know, like fix the highlights, you know, like all the different things, you know. Of course, that the knowledge that we have as professional photographers, you cannot fully teach it, right? Because if you're talking to people, you're saying like, oh, you know, I'm going to use all these different like techniques to bring all the dynamic range out here. I mean, you're gonna confuse everybody. So what we do is make sure that we give the really very strong principles. But then the ones that do know, then we start talking about, obviously, we go in depth and we're talking about, you know, like bracketing and how we're going to get this photo right. You know, like, for example, I goes with some people that have such a good knowledge of photography, and they tell you, they say, listen, man, you know, I want this photo. I'm trying to get, you know, maybe 2 or 3 shots because I want to stack them, and I want to do this and I want to do that. But when I bring them into the computer, it's not working for me. Then then we come and then we tell them, like, hey, listen, go to this file, open this setting. This will automate this for you. This will do this for you. This will bring the highlights out, your shadows, the dynamic range, and all these other things. How to save it, how to. So those people that know more, we go more in depth, and the people that don't, we give them the good basics, so that they can post process their photos and get good quality shots. I mean,
you know who you're teaching to. Yeah.
Is one thing, and the post processing is the other half.
Love it.
Excellent. Yeah, that's phenomenal. I just Iceland obviously is on. I think it's on all of our bucket lists, but it's definitely on mine. I had the opportunity just before everything went south on us in 2019. My wife and I did Alaska, and we did 2 weeks in Alaska.
Alaska's also beautiful.
I would love to go back. We were there in the middle of summer, so obviously it didn't get dark till 1 o'clock in the morning or something like that. It finally got dark, so seeing things like auroras was completely out of the question. But to go back in the fall or in the winter to see the auroras would be something for sure, or Iceland to see the auroras. So.
Hey, you guys let me know. I'm telling you, you guys get the family price, 100%.
Oh man!
I've been trying to drag Eliza to come to Iceland. But
we should all book the same trip and we'll all go.
And we have to. We got to do like not every trip that you do has to be for work, right? You have to have a trip where you can just go and have some good time with your friends. So hey, you guys let me know. The Aurora Borealis usually happens at the beginning of the year or at the end of the year, right? It's the best times to see it. And Iceland is a 6-hour flight from New York, so I'm sure that it's not that far.
No, not too bad. Yeah, I think from Toronto, New York is about an hour and 3/4 or even 2 hours. So it's not too bad at all.
No, not at all.
Yeah, not too bad at all. So we're coming to the top of the hour here. We've got just a couple more questions, but before I get into those, Aurora, Brian, do you have any more questions for Andres?
I'm just a little curious because, I mean, you're a photographer, obviously, but you went to school for industrial design. You're doing industrial design as well, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So in 2009, I left. I used to work for Black & Decker.
Okay.
And I left my corporate job at Black & Decker, and I went to open my own firm. But to make it work, we had to open it in China. So my business partner and I, we decided to go to China. So we went there during the Olympics in 2008. And we opened my company, Concepto Studios, which is the design firm that designs the products. So yeah, I still design products. I'm more of a director now than a designer as I was before. But I still have the company. But the thing is, you see, designing products is very like photography. It's just a process. And, if you follow the right process, you will have the right results. So, it's a matter of, just putting dedication and time into it. And, I try to explain that to people when it comes to macro, because it's not an easy thing to master. It's a very easy thing to learn. You can take a macro lens and get close to an insect and photograph them, and you're gonna have a picture. Maybe you're not gonna have this amazing photograph, but only dedication and time will give you that. And I find that to be true to all kinds of photography. The same thing with the ultimate products, and the products require photography as well, because you need packaging, you need to take pictures of details and for presentations, and then you're doing this 3D renderings, and the 3D rendering at the end of the day is a digital photograph. So you still need to make sure that you place it in the right location, that you have the right composition, so on and so forth.
Very neat.
Awesome. Mike, I can go on and on and on. I can ask you your business strategies. I can go, because what you do in Day Tripper Photo are kind of similar in a lot of ways. In fact, the only time that I've seen the Aurora Borealis was with Mark. Up in, you were on that trip, weren't you, Mark?
No, that was the year. That was the year that I went. No.
Yeah, but it was on this island up in North Bay, and it wasn't anything like what you would see in Iceland. I keep going back to the video of it, but yeah, that's the only time I've ever seen it. But that was on a day trip, and that was on a situation like what you're saying, where something I want to do, I have all these people register for a workshop. It allows me to go and do it as well. And I get to enjoy much more out of photography and see, learn new things through the eyes of my students, very much like what you were saying. I think that whole thing you were talking about relates very much to what I do with Day Tripper. So I could sit and ask your business strategies and your marketing strategies, but I'm not going to go. I'm super happy that you're doing it. And I love that you're able to turn what your passions are into your day-to-day lifestyle, which is exactly the point of our podcast here. And I think you've been fantastic as a guest, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you guys for doing this. Believe it or not, when Liza told me about the podcast, I went online, I went on YouTube. I've been watching many of them. I saw the intro. I saw,
I think this is the first.
Well, the thing is what I told you earlier. First of all, this is the first time I do a podcast. Okay, honest to God, and to me, I'm very flattered by it. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do a podcast. This is pretty cool, man. But because of the way I am, which I was telling you earlier, I gotta go. I'm doing a podcast. I go watch all the videos. What's going on? How it takes place, what's happening, I need to make sure that I know everything about it so that I can give myself to the podcast, and if somebody's gonna ask me questions about, the things I do, which in my day-to-day, it's just my life, I don't see it as anything special. I know a lot of people do, and I'm very flattered by it, like when people tell me wonderful pictures, great tutorial, and everything that you've done with this is amazing. I myself am like, oh wow, yeah, I get red, and I'm like, well, thank you, but in my life, like developing the products and doing the photography is just a day-to-day thing, because I will always, no matter if there's internet or not, or if people want to see it or not, I will always take pictures. I will always come back home and post-process them and put them in my computer and in my walls, because this is my museum, my own home.
What you love,
and that is never gonna change. So, I'm really happy to have a podcast, man. This is the first time I'm in one podcast.
Cool.
Perfect. Well, we're super glad. We're super glad you could make it. Awesome. So we'll get into we'll do the 3 questions. So the first one is we often talk as photographers. What's in your bag? We talk about the gear that's in your bag, but we're not necessarily talking about gear. It's that what is that one thing, whether it be a physical item or not, that you take with you or that you have with you every time that you are being creative?
Well, I don't carry my camera around all the time. If I was to, to be honest with you, I'm just a spur of the moment kind of guy, I might be driving somewhere and I see something and I just, stop. And if I have a phone, I'll snap a picture with my phone. And I have hundreds of photos taken like that.
Yep.
If I have the gear with me, then good. I'll use my gear. Sometimes a lot of these photos, and I'm telling you, it's hard to believe. I know people don't believe you sometimes when you say certain things, but all my macro photography is handheld, right? Yep. So I don't use tripods or anything like that. It's all handheld. So I'm used to hand holding things. So I do a lot of panoramic photos, just handheld.
Yeah.
And just the tripods all the time. If I'm doing like a long exposure, yeah, you set up your tripod and just things, but usually it's handheld things, no tripods, just kind of like whatever is in your hands, get things done. But I will say my inspiration is always nature, man. I just find myself that every time I'm out and about, I'm hiking or I'm in Costa Rica or in Iceland or here in Miami, just out and about. Nature always inspires me, the sunsets. And believe me, this is crazy, but my apartment faces north. So I don't have the sunrise in Florida. We don't have sunsets, we have sunrises. But when the sun sets on the west side, so I get the most amazing sunsets where you can only see the clouds changing color. I take a lot of photos of these. I don't post them anywhere, but I have some amazing ones. I will send you guys some. You'll see.
Cloudscapes are beautiful.
Man,
awesome.
What I'm telling you, I just watch them. I sit down there in my balcony and I just watch. I don't take pictures. Sometimes I take pictures and I don't. But nature is always the major thing that inspires me for everything.
Good.
Perfect.
As it should be, I think, personally.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what's most important.
I've got some interesting shapes forming in the snow as things get buried in my backyard. So
I can imagine.
I meant to get out there today, but it wasn't sunny like originally they had said it was going to be. It was completely overcast. So maybe tomorrow afternoon or on the weekend I'll get out there because I know the dogs won't venture into that deep snow to get it. I'll have to go myself. Okay, so the next question is, what is your jam? What is the music or the song that gets you going? What is it that you just, whenever you hear it, you always turn it up and it just gets you moving?
Oh man, I think I'm bipolar because it could be Tool. Like I like Tool, and you know,
I think you're my brother. I think you're my long lost brother. My mind is
like Tool goes on, I go off, you know, but at the same time, you know, it could be something just very chill, you know, like Bruce Springsteen or something. You know? I mean, I don't know. I love music though. I love music. I listen to all kinds of music, but yeah, like a little bit of heavy music is my thing.
Perfect.
I'm getting you a little bit better now.
All right. Awesome. And our last question this evening is was the challenge. So we had asked you in the letter to issue a challenge to our viewers.
Oh, I did. Let me open that email because I don't have it with me. Let me open the email. Hold on a second.
We can help remind you if you'd like.
Oh yeah. You guys do, that'll be better.
Here. Do you see the chat within our group here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So create an artistic abstract photograph of commonly found objects using the reverse lens photography technique. So what I think is, there you go. Flip those lenses, find something that you have in your house. You know, like there's so many things around your house that are very, very, very interesting. And you can get some really cool photographs with the reverse technique. And then, you know, the way they can watch the video too, as I mentioned before, you know, we made a very nice video. It's on YouTube. It has over 1 million views.
Wow.
Yeah, man, that's it. There you go. You will be able to find some very interesting things, landscapes, you know, where your eye usually don't see things. Maybe get close to your computer, you can see the pixels. It's a lot of good things that you can photograph. So that's the challenge.
Little pixel peepings, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. That's awesome. I'm going to have to try that. I tried it once on a Don Kamarachka course,
nice.
A macro photography course I did with Don Kamarachka, just playing with stuff that I had and not borrowing lenses. But it was interesting. I didn't have really great results, and I haven't done it since, so I'll have to revisit that.
Nice. I want to see your results, Mark.
You should do it. In fact, for our first episode 0, we issued the photo challenge Naked Photography. And I did that naked photography challenge in my bathroom.
I see this look on Andres' face.
I know. Okay, so let me explain. Naked photography. You have to use JPEG. It's not nude photography. It's none of that. You shoot in JPEG. You can only take 20 photos. 10 of them have to be wall worthy. You can't edit. You can't do anything. It all has to be in camera.
Oh, wow.
So you have to find a 10-foot by 10-foot space and make 20 photos, 10 of which have to be wall worthy. So my way of doing this is I went to the bathroom and I did free lensing. I did reverse mount lensing. I did pictures of the toothbrush with the little ripple of the toothbrush pattern, the buttons on the knobs, the soap bubbles, like any of that, all that kind of stuff. And it was fun. It was like really a great session. I did this years ago for one of my workshops and carried it forward when we did the Expressions podcast, episode 0, I think it was.
I think I need to try that naked photography, man. Honestly, yeah, that's hard.
It is.
It sounds hard.
Years and years ago, I was in a photography course. It was kind of funny. It was a night school program that came to the house, and I wanted to do it. My dad was a photographer, and I wanted to do this photography course. So I had a 35 millimeter film camera, and I signed up for it. And it was at the local high school, and I think I was, 12. So I was still in public school. I went to grade 7. And I showed up to the class, and I was the only kid in the class. And the instructor was like, whoa, this is an adult class. But he decided to let me stay. And I think there was maybe 15 of us in the class, and it was in the high school. And one day he shows up, and he's got these hula hoops. and he gives each one of us a hula hoop, and we always had a fresh roll of film when you got to the class, and we go outside, and he tells us all to just throw our hula hoop. So everybody throws their hula hoop, and we're standing like at a parking lot. So most people are throwing them out in the parking lot and the lucky ones landed like sort of half on a parking block or half on the grass, half on the asphalt, because once it landed, he goes, okay, take your 24 images in that circle.
Oh, get out of here.
And make them. I was lucky mine had landed on a parking block, and there was a couple of cigarette butts and whatnot.
Nice.
So,
Wow, that's a good one too, man.
But
that is good. Yeah.
The 10x10 challenge, but it was
actually it was challenging to come up with a question, to come up with a challenge. And I thought about I was like, it's macro, right? I'm known for doing macro photography. Let's challenge something with reverse lens. But what you're telling me right now, like throwing the hula hoops and all these things, or going into the room and taking 20 naked pictures. That's something else.
Coming from Miami, that could be scary too. You never know.
Miami is something else.
Awesome.
Perfect. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us this week, everyone, for Expressions Podcast Season 2, Episode 9, where we spoke with Andres Moline about his amazing photography and his adventures in Iceland. If you're liking what you're seeing, please like, subscribe, share, comment below. We're going to put the links to Andres. Can we put your Instagram, your Facebook, and all that down below as well? As well, Andres, if you want to give us the link to your travel company for Borealis. We'll put that below as well.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, everyone, and thanks for joining us, and have a great evening. Bye now.
Bye, guys.